But when I inspected my spider gears, I realized that they are well worn. And let me see which gear it was. It was on this gear. No. This gear. See that gear right there? There's a big chunk missing out of it. So, in combination with the wear on these gears, which as you can see, there's definitely some wear on them. So in combination of the excessive backlash in my main gear, the wear and broken parts in my spider gear, it was definitely time to order up some new parts for this. Alright, so before we get reassembling, I want to talk about two other things, or I want to retrace my words on one thing. So the backlash is that very small amount of play, hopefully small amount of play, in between this, I think it's a rack and pinion gear. I'm pretty sure. So what you do, you attach your magnetic caliper to some magnetic portion of this, or you do something like that, your dial caliper, and then you just measure the up and down free play in this. So again, mine was originally at 30 thousandths. I set it to, I believe, 11 thousandths. So the way you set the backlash is quite simple. First thing you need to do, you need to order, if you have a Ford 8.8, you need to order a Ford 8.8 carrier, a differential carrier shim kit. I think that's what it's called, something along those lines. And how that kit works is there's a series of shims to the left of both these bearings on that side, and then there's another one on that side. So what you do is basically, if you want less backlash, you need to add more shimming on the left side and take out some on the right side, and then you just shift this over, and that'll cause the gears to become closer together, therefore decreasing your backlash. And again, it's important to make sure that you have the right amount of backlash. So that's how you adjust your backlash. And when you're taking this out, it's very simple. You just remove these 4 bolts, and then there's bearings. These are the races that kind of hold the bearings. So yeah, this whole thing will pop out. Just be ready to catch it. It's a little heavy. So yeah, next thing we need to do is start replacing our spider gears. Now, if you look inside, this portion, this is our axle, and they slide in and out. It's also handy to have another person helping you here. So the first thing I need to do is I need to switch out my clutch packs to the new gears. Then I'm going to put my planetary gears back in, and then I'm just going to start working the satellites and try and line up that pin there. So I'll get everything set up, and you can watch me try and do this here. So I'm just taking the parts out of this box here, and I just wanted to quickly go over each of these parts if you don't have much of an understanding. So try and get one of these out without damaging it. These are thrust washers, and these go on your satellite gears like so. Like that. So that's what those washers are. Obviously your planetary gears, and then you have your pin. Something I want to note upon, you're not going to be able to see it now. You would have seen it before I took my differential apart. When you replace your spider gears or planetary and satellite gears, always replace that pin. When I removed my old pin, I had a couple thousandths of an inch of play in that carrier. And when I got these gears today, I was thinking to myself, oh shoot, I wonder if my carrier's worn out. Which that's a strong possibility too, but I test fitted the new pin, and the new pin fits into that carrier, and there's no free play. It's okay to have some play in your spider gears, but you don't want any play in that pin while it sits in the case, not carrier, case carrier, whatever you want to call it. So let me keep getting set up here. Okay, so as you can see, I have my new parts in a clean cardboard box. It's important to keep everything clean and sanitary. That way you don't get any more debris into your differential than you have to. So here are my new gears, obviously, and here are the old gears. It's a good idea just to check that both of the gears line up correctly. And I'm just going to show you that. You can see the amount of wear that are on my old planetary gears. So The transfer of the clutch packs is very simple. Just lift them up. Make sure that you remove all the washers off the bottom of your old gears. So I'm just going to check on the bottom. Yep, that's the last washer. Then just simply put it onto your new planetary gear. Everything should line up, hopefully, which mine does. So, alright, that one's set. I'm going to put this old gear off to the side. Do the second new one. Make sure I have all my old washers off the bottom. Alright, so everything is pretty much set up to go. Something I would like to note, when you're removing your planetary gears from your axle housing, be sure that you remove all the washers out of that case. Okay, so the reason I'm saying when you remove those planetary gears out of the axle case or differential case, be sure to remove those washers. And the reason being, if you forget one and you try and insert a new set of clutch packs, you will not be able to get these gears in there. And I made that mistake in the past, and there's no information out there because, you know, when you have oil in between the case and one of these smooth friction plates, you know, one of these washers that go in between the friction discs, with the oil in between that and the case, they will stick on there and you won't realize that they're in there. So be sure to remove everything out of there. Yeah, and I think we are set up to start installing this. So let me get the camera set up and we'll get to work here. Okay, so let's give this a shot. I'm going to do the right side planetary gear first. And the axle shaft is currently free in here. And the way I'm going to control that is with my foot. I don't think you can see that. So yeah, you can control that with your foot. If you have a second person, even better. So let me get the camera set up again. I think that's pretty good. Maybe not. Stand by. Alright. First attempt. If you'll notice, you're not really going to be able to see it, but on these friction discs, there's tabs, and there's two cuts on either side, or cutouts for these tabs to go in, so you may have to play around with that a little bit. You can spin this whole carrier around. None of these tabs are lined up. There we go. Alright, now I'm just going to push the axle in with my foot. You see it popped out, so you got to spin the axle until those lines line up with each other, and then it should go right in. Alright, now I'm just going to recess that back so it's flush, and that should kind of hold that in there temporarily. Now I need to do the same thing on the other side, but before I do that, I need to reorientate my body 180 degrees. Oh, you'll find this interesting. Check this out. Remember I told you to check inside your carrier for any additional shims? There's actually a shim on this side. Or washers, whatever you want to call it. See that? That's why you always check. Alright, let's try and get this side in now. Push that back a little bit. It's going to start getting a little tight in here. Get used to it. It's just a matter of working these friction discs in here. Starting to go. check the other side again. I'm going to start pushing that axle in. Alright, good stuff. So both of our planetary gears are in. The reason why they're planets, or planetary gears, is because they sit in one spot, they just spin. The satellite gears revolve around the planetary gears, as you'll see in a minute. Alright, I'm not sure if these gears are going to walk on here easy or difficultly, and we are about to find out. So next thing I'm going to do is take my new satellite gear, and I'm going to make sure I have a thrush washer on the bottom. I'm going to take a little oil that's just kind of resting on the housing here, and I'm just going to oil this up a little bit. Notice I'm not wearing gloves. I think it's kind of pointless when you're working on a differential, because with all these sharp gears you're just going to break your gloves anyway, and you may get a piece of it in there. So what I'm going to do is attempt to keep this in one spot. I'm going to keep it towards the top, and then I'm going to rotate this whole housing. Okay, I'm going to hold it on the back side with my left hand. I'm going to get the second satellite gear, put a little bit of oil on it. You're not going to be able to see that. It's going to be off camera. And I'm going to attempt to put it in the same spot where I believe the other one is on the other side. So directly across. That might be it. And the way you check this is if you take your pin and you just slide it across, and if everything goes in smoothly, which that's not, so that means I need to readjust these a little bit. So I'm going to walk this up a little bit. I might have to go a little bit more. Alright, let's check this again. And I think that's it right there. Notice how that pin just slides freely across. I'm pretty sure this is a good way to get it close, but I'm not definitely sure yet. We'll figure that out in a minute. So the next thing we need to do is start walking these across. And so to walk these across, I'm taking my thumb and I'm starting to spin this here. And I think I'm probably going to need help with this. Don't want to pop that out. Just pop my axle out a little bit. Alright, I think I'm going to have to get more help for this. Okay, so believe it or not, I actually got the spider gears in here by myself, which was a bit of a surprise. And it took a lot of weird positioning. Yeah. So let me set these up so that they line up equally. And let me show you how I did this. So I put some lug nuts back on one side of the axle. I got a steel bar running across. And to rotate one side, hopefully you can see that, I just take my foot and I'm pushing it against the bolts on the axle. So this thing is almost in place. That should be pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. Might have to go back a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off the bar on the one side. And now that's going to allow me to rotate the differential case like so. As you can see, we're not perfectly lined up. Gotta go one way a little bit. I might have to put that bar back on there. Let's see. I may be able to spin the one side actually. That was too far now. Yeah, I'm liking that. That looks real good. Alright, so this is going to be attempt number 1 at inserting this thing in here. I do have a blast shield on. What I did, I took one side of my S-spring, clamped it in a vise, and I've taken my needle nose and held that compression with them. And now I'm going to attempt to get this in here. Remember last time I did this, it took a try or two. I'm going to back the camera up a little bit. Brass hammer would be ideal here. Get in a good position. Alright, let's see. Nope. Good try. Yeah, this is gonna be a little tricky. Alright, this is take number 2. This thing is like a projectile. Be very careful. Absolutely have a blast shield on. You should use a brass hammer. I found that the wood one's not going to work, so I'm using a metal hammer, which you should not do. And I think that's set. Yep. Yep. Awesome. Alright, so, wow, that's sketchy. That thing popped off and hit me in the chest once. Putting that thing on there is very, very dangerous. Now that I got it started, I'm going to get a piece of wood or something that won't damage that spring, and then we'll put that on there the rest of the way. Yeah, that thing is very dangerous, so I'm going to take a piece of wood. Brass probably would be better. You don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to spin the housing. Try not to get too much oil on my gloves. Alright, let's spin this and see how we're lining up here. We went too far. No big deal. Alright, so we'll send this back the other way. It would have really sucked if we just punched it out the other side. We would have had to do this all over again. She's close. Needs a little bit more. 1/4 inch. Yep, and she should be in there. So now what we need to do is reinsert our axle seat clips. So I'm gonna set the camera up again better so you guys can see this. Push the one axle in, you can see it come through. Wants to know how we're doing, which we're doing just fine, I believe. Oh man, that's eerie having my hands in between that spring. Alright, make sure it's recessed, which it has. I'm gonna push the other axle in. My other seat clip. That axle needs to go in more. Alright, there she goes. That axle is all the way in. Now I need to install my pin, my main pin. So on your main pin, on one half of it, there's a hole, and if you look at your case, you'll see there's a square cutout. That's the same side that the hole's gonna get lined up with. So insert that like so. My spider gears are giving me a little bit of trouble now. There she goes. Almost cut my finger. Those gears can be very sharp. Axle's gonna go out a little bit. There she goes. Alright, what's the problem now? I'm hitting that spring again. You really don't want to force that pin. Take your time doing this. How are we looking? Gonna go a little bit more. You hear that thing drop in there? That is a beautiful sound. Alright, that is in. Now, I'm going to turn this back to where the square cutout is. I'm going to get my 8mm locking bolt in, ready to go. And now it's just a matter of lining up the hole. She should be right there. There she is. Alright, she started to go in. And now to tighten this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to this axle and I'm going to set up this bar in between the nuts. Oh, that's heavy. Like so. And that way when I go to tighten down this 8mm locking bolt, instead of spinning the whole case, it's going to bind right here. Or at least that's the idea. I may need to switch that bar around in the opposite direction, but I do believe I have it in the right direction. I believe this bolt gets 40 foot-pounds, but I'm just going to put it on there with a good cinch. Probably would be best to get a torque wrench out, but alright, that's good. Definitely don't want to break that off. That would be unfortunate. It would be very unfortunate. Alright, the final thing I'm going to do here, we have all our tough components in. That's a huge plus. So what we need to do now is prep this differential for the gasket material. And what I'm going to do is just take some starting fluid, spray it along the edge of this housing. I'm going to take a clean side of a cloth here, and I'm just going to wipe this down. I'm going to remove any oil, make sure that the surface is clean, which I have already scraped it with a gasket scraper, so it should be pretty well close, ready to go. Alright, yeah, so what I need to do now is I need to take my black label RTV on the cover of the differential, and I'm going to spread a continuous bead, on the inside of these bolts. You don't want to go on the outside because then oil could seep through those bolt holes. So yeah, I'm going to put a nice layer on the inside and a continuous layer. I'm going to snug down all the bolts, and then I'm going to wait an hour, and then I'm going to cinch the bolts down the rest of the way. That way you give the RTV some time to cure, and then after it cures, then you cinch down on those bolts and it'll create an awesome seal. I've never had anything leak with RTV as long as you do it properly. Yeah, and it does take 24 hours for it to fully cure, but from what I've read online, guys, 2 hours later they're up and running. So yeah, that pretty much concludes this video. I know it's been pretty lengthy, but I think I've introduced some great information. I am by no means a mechanic. I'm just someone who's very handy. I'm a hobby welder, hobby mechanic. This is something anyone can do. Just make sure you have the proper tools and patience to do this. It does look very intimidating, but you're going to save yourself thousands of dollars doing this yourself as opposed to taking this to a mechanic. So thanks for watching. If you liked my video, appreciate a thumbs up and subscribe for more interesting content.